Okay, so this is the physical simulated character that I'm working on. I'll just show you how you can move around and stay in balance. So what I can do is I can actually change his where he has indirect control over center mass by figuring out the torques that are necessary in the hips and the ankle to achieve a change in the position. So for example, if I put the center mass, if I say I want the center mass to be on the left foot, you see he accommodates by shifting his weight over there. And then you're free to pick up the other foot. It's relatively robust to sudden changes. But, if I push it to the extreme, he will fall over eventually. Let's see. Oh, there he goes. And you can see we have a lot of fun with our characters here. But anyway, the way that it works is underneath this is just a way to visualize what's happening. But if I look at the actual geometry, so I can turn off this. You can see that these blue shaped rigid bodies are actually what's doing the physics. And each one of them is held together by a constraint. And each one, a hinge constraint, either a ball joint, such as in the shoulders and the hands, the feet, or a hinge joint. So this has 1 degree of freedom, these have 3 degrees of freedom. And so if I turn off, say I turn off, I'll turn off the balance, or turn off the balance controller, and I turn off this, you can see he's just gonna fall over like a ragdoll. And so current games are starting to use ragdoll physics, but in the eventually they're gonna want to use fully articulated characters that can actually perform complex maneuvers. So you first start out by making this ragdoll and OpenDynamics engine, and then you build a controller which can show, say for example, this is the reference skeleton. Okay, so this has the same joints, but it's kinematic, so I can control it like this, and I can use inverse kinematics to solve for the hands. Oh, it should work. The character is trying to achieve the joint angles from this kinematic and his physically simulated. So he's trying to get those, which used to be just a ragdoll, and applying torques at each one of these hinges that will achieve this desired angle. But there's going to obviously be collisions with the environment. So you can see this red here represents kind of the error. So since his knee is in contact with the ground, he can't actually put the joint where he wants it to be. But if I just use a reference controller, you can see the character will quickly fall over. And what falling over really means is when the center of mass, which you can see here is this yellow dot, and you project it onto the floor, as long as that center of mass is within this polygon, which is defined by the contact region of the foot, then as long as that center of mass is within that region, then it's statically balanced. So so you can see what happens is, it'll start going to one side, and then it'll just fall over. Okay. So then what we do is we activate, one of these balance controllers. Oops, not that one. And let's turn this one back on too. And now all of a sudden, it's going to apply feedback. So once the center it drives the center mass towards the desired location. It does this using the Jacobian transpose. It looks at, applying a torque at each ankle will induce a certain change in the center of mass, and then you do a summation of that to figure out the contribution. You build a matrix which defines, how the change in torque in each one of these limbs will affect the center of mass. And you take the inverse of that matrix and you apply it to a force that you want to achieve, which is a virtual force. And if you multiply the transpose, or the inverse of that matrix, by that force, then it turns back into the torques that are needed to be applied to each joint. So the next step is to actually, instead of, we can sit here and make motions by moving these manipulators around. But ideally what we'd like to do is use motion. And so basically you take a motion and then you segment it into a bunch of pieces. And then we want to use these motions to actually drive the physically simulated character. But that's going to have to wait for a little bit.